Hi, I'm Lee from LA.Guitar, and today I thought we'd take another look at the Boss GX10. So I'm doing a few videos about the GX10, showing off some of the features and some of the amp models that are available. And today I thought I'd look at the high gain models which are in the GX10, focusing specifically on the X Crunch, X High Gain and X Modded. They're the Boss MDP, which is multi-dimensional processing. They're the Boss own sort of models of amp, rather than being modelled on any Marshalls or Mesa Boogies or Vox or whatever. They're my favourite amps in the Boss products. I've talked about the Boss IR2 pedal, which I think really sounds great and has got those three amp models in it, but also the GX10 has also got those amp models in it. I've partnered this with my favourite IR, and we'll talk a bit more about IRs later. So my favourite IR is an Own Hammer 4x12, which is based on a cabinet which has got V30, vintage 30 speakers in it. So that's loaded into the GX10. X High Gain sounds like this. I should say that I've got some reverb and delay running as well. The reverb and delay are from the Neural Archetype plugin, the Pliny version, and that's literally just the reverb and the delay. I'm adding that in post-production. So all the amp tones that you're hearing are from the Boss GX10. If that's a bit high gain for you, we can look at the X Crunch, and if we just navigate back one, we can get to the X Crunch. I have got the gain maxed out at 120. That's just how I prefer to work. And you'll notice that you've got a gain switch here. This is like a gain staging, so you've got low, medium and high. The X Crunch, just with it on the low gain setting, I mean, that's certainly a rock and roll tone. I wouldn't class it as sort of high gain. In the middle. But for the X Crunch model, I would certainly say you need to have it on the high gain mode. So there's a slightly lower gain mode which might be suitable for you. You could always add an overdrive in front of that to make that a bit harder. Probably for proper high gain tones, my favourite is the X Modded. And if we start with the gain on the lowest setting, it sounds like this. In the middle. And in the highest gain mode. So there we go, the X Modded is really kind of almost edging into metal territory there, and certainly to my ears, with a bit of EQ and a bit of maybe an overdrive in front as well if you really want to go crazy. That sounds really good. So on the back of the video that I released about the Boss IR2, I noticed in the comments section there was a few comments about the sound of the IR2, and someone suggesting that there was a slight boxiness to the sound. And I just wanted to talk about that. Inherently, guitar, overdriven and high gain guitar sounds do sound very boxy. It's all about the mids. If you concentrate the sound on the mid range of the frequency spectrum, that's really where overdriven electric guitar really lives, in a full band mix. Boxiness is kind of inherent in the guitar sound anyway. If you're not used to listening to your guitar sound in a full mix, your ears can focus in on just the boxiness rather than listening to the whole production mix. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, lots of people play guitar just for pleasure on their own in you know, their bedroom or their studio or their spare room at home, and that's absolutely fine. And this is where speaker IRs perhaps are not really for you. And I'm going to talk about a technique that you can use where you can kind of build your own IR just using parametric EQs and just using EQ filters. And what I'll do is I'll give you like a starting point of somewhere where you can build your own sound, but I'll give you the very sort of basics in terms of what you need to do to get your sound kind of in the right area. So the first thing that we do is in the GX10 is load up a graphic EQ. So what I've done actually here is loaded up the high gain model, and what we need to do is navigate over to the speakers, which are accessed by the arrow keys here, and we need to turn the speaker off. So now that's off. We've got no speaker IR, no cab modelling at all happening on that sound, so it's rather horrible. That's what a highly driven amplifier sounds like without any speaker cab attached to it. So what we need to do first of all, if you're not going to use an IR, you're going to build a cabinet in this way, is we need to get a parametric EQ and put it directly after the amplifier. Now the beauty of the GX10 is you're not restricted to just using one. You can have as many effects as the processing inside the GX10 will allow. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have two parametric EQs, one after the other. So now we've got two directly after the amp. Okay, so taking the first one, what we need to do, use the arrow keys to navigate the various parameters, and we need to come across to high cut and low cut. This is essentially cutting off all of the top end and all of the bottom end, but obviously we don't want to do it all. So what we find is, for low cut, we need to set that to about 100, and for high cut, we need to set it to about 4K. So there's not a lot of high end higher than about 4 to 5K on a guitar speaker. 4K is where it starts to drop off. So 4K isn't the absolute top of what you're going to hear, but it's where the curve starts to drop. It starts to drop at about 4K and then it falls away. So when we set that to 4K, we're not actually cutting dead at 4K. What we're doing is we're starting the drop. If you imagine a line, and we're starting the drop at 4K. So what we've done here, we've cut at 100 on the low end and 4K on the top end. So let's just see what that sounds like. Okay, well it's got rid of that really high end fizziness and that low end rumble, but we need to go a bit further. So if we navigate to the low mid frequencies now, and we need to have a setting of about 160, so that's above where we've done our cut. We've done our cut at 100, so we're moving up to 160 now, and we need to boost that quite a lot. I would say by about +8. So we've got some low end coming back into it now. And then navigate to some highs, which I would set low. So we've already done our main cut at 4K, so I would just come underneath that at 3. You get 315 as a setting here, and I would boost that by about 4. Okay, so we're really starting to get somewhere now. We're still introducing a little bit of fizz back in the high end, which I'm not too crazy about. But anyway, if we move over now to our second parametric EQ, and again to our high cut and low cuts, So what we can do for the low cut again is move up to about 125, and high cuts we can be really a bit more drastic and cut this down at 315. So this is what we get. Okay, so I'm liking the top end now. The top end's okay. It's sounding a little bit dull, but it's sounding okay now. Now, if we come to the very first page on this second EQ, you've got high gain and low gain. And that acts like a shelving. So basically, if you imagine the frequency spectrum in a line, what it's doing is it will boost everything at the bottom and everything at the top. So what we can do is we can take quite a drastic boost on the bottom end. I'm going to say 8. And a drastic shelving boost on the top end. Again, I'm going to say 8. And this is what we get. Okay, it's starting to get there. And then if we move over to the 4K, I just want to have a little bit of brightness put back in. Not too much. So let's just say around +3. Yeah, that's good. The boxiness that people talk about is usually hidden in the mid-range somewhere. And I do actually like a little bit of that boxiness to come through because, you know, to me, that's what an overdriven electric guitar sounds like. And the way that I've put that in for this particular method is to navigate to our other frequency band within this second EQ, which was probably the last one that we haven't used. And I would set this to 1K, and I would give it a cut, quite a drastic cut. I would say probably about 5, and this is where we end up. So remember, we're not actually using an IR now. All we've done is taken that guitar sound, and if I mute these two graphics, remember this is the sound we started with. But what does that sound like compared to the IR? Well, I've got both sounds set up here next to each other. So this is our sound using the EQs. And this is the same sound with the Own Hammer IR. So that just shows you how powerful EQ filters, boosts and cuts can be. If you don't fancy surfing through thousands and thousands of IRs to try and find one that you like, or they all sound boxy to you, or they all sound bad, you can use EQs to really craft out your tone. And just use my settings as a starting point to get you roughly where you need to be. and then you can use various cuts and boosts to really shape your own tone and get your own signature sound. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment as well, and I'll see you in the next one. My name's Lee. Cheers.